Tonight a dam breaks. The individual who meticulously orchestrated a complex character assassination campaign against you is on the verge of collapsing under the immense weight of their own deceit. They are now cornered and desperate, with the only viable escape route being the very truth they have been suffocating for months. What they once saw as a masterful work of manipulation is about to crumble into a full-blown confession of corruption. But this story doesn't start with their downfall. It starts with you. You have stood calm and unmoved in the eye of the hurricane they manufactured, a quiet observer, watching their meticulously constructed world implode while you remain completely untouched. You have been playing chess while they were playing checkers, and only now are they realizing the board was never theirs to control. The mastermind, the jealous accomplice, and the silent enabler. To truly grasp the magnitude of what is coming, we must first examine the three key players in this drama. First, there is the mastermind, a person who breathes manipulation like oxygen. Their entire life has been a project in constructing false realities and watching others dance to those fabricated truths. When they first encountered you, they recognized something that terrified them: genuine power. Not the kind that comes from coercion or control, but the authentic power that radiates from someone who knows exactly who they are and refuses to compromise that truth for anyone. Your very existence threatened their house of cards because genuine people recognize authenticity, and they knew they were a counterfeit. So they did what master manipulators always do. They studied you, not to understand you but to find angles of attack. They tracked how you moved through the world, who you trusted, and what mattered to you. They built a psychological profile, mapping vulnerabilities, and preparing for a war you didn't even know was coming. The brilliance of their scheme was its complexity. It wasn't a single lie, but an intricate web of half-truths, strategic omissions, and outright fabrications designed to paint you as everything you were not. If you were generous, they labeled you manipulative. If you were confident, they called you arrogant. If you were successful, they smeared you as corrupt. They even learned how to weaponize your kindness, calling you naive when you gave people the benefit of the doubt, and labeling your efforts to save relationships as desperation. Their whole strategy was meant to keep you off balance and reactive, rather than calm, observant. What they failed to anticipate, however, was that their obsession with destroying you would become the very instrument of their own ruin. Every moment they spent crafting lies about you was a moment they weren't tending to their own crumbling foundation. They became so consumed with engineering your downfall that they neglected to shore up their own position. And while they perfected the story, their life quietly fell apart. Next, we have the jealous accomplice. Their motive was the most primitive and dangerous. Your existence forced them to confront everything they were not and could never become. Jealousy is a strange, corrosive force, one that requires the jealous person to continually recognize the superiority of their target. Instead of using that awareness as fuel for self-improvement, they chose destruction. They became the eager engine of the rumor mill, amplifying every lie the mastermind invented. They added their own flourishes and personal poison to the stories, sharpening the edges so the falsehoods cut deeper. They were not merely repeating lies, they were improving them, dressing them in details that made them feel believable and devastating. The beautiful irony is that their jealousy blinded them to their own reality. So intent on bringing you down, they failed to see they were being used as a mere pawn in someone else's game. The mastermind needed their enthusiasm and willingness to get their hands dirty, but never intended to share any real power, credit, or reward with them. This person is now learning the hard way that jealousy is a poison that destroys the vessel that contains it. Finally, there was the most infuriating player of all, the silent enabler. This individual knew better, but chose silence. They had access to facts that could have cleared your name immediately, and held the moral authority to speak up and end the lies. Yet, they stayed quiet because your removal served their purposes, whether to advance an agenda, protect a position, or simply avoid the hassle of taking a stand. They chose complicity over courage. Their silence made them just as culpable as the loudest accuser, and their choice will be a central part of the reckoning that finally exposes the whole scheme. Every day they stayed quiet was another day they allowed falsehood to masquerade as truth. Their silence has curdled into guilt, and that guilt has been eating them from the inside for months. As they watched you suffer under accusations they could have stopped. The pressure from this internal conflict is now building to an unbearable crescendo, the beginning of the end. Your transition from victim to observer changed everything. You were no longer playing their game by their rules. You stopped feeding them the reactions they needed to fuel their story. Your refusal to perform destabilized the entire operation, because unpredictability is the enemy of control. You began to connect the inconsistencies in their stories and the coordination behind seemingly independent sources. These connected dots revealed the true scope of the conspiracy against you. More importantly, you started to see the fractures within their alliance. The mastermind's mounting irritation with their accomplices' incompetence, the jealous person's growing resentment at being used as a tool, and the silent enabler's swelling guilt over their inaction. The pressure built until an explosion felt inevitable. This is the moment when you embodied your chosen nature, not as a victim of their schemes, but as a force of truth that their lies could not withstand. Their carefully constructed empire of lies is now collapsing, and their co-conspirators are beginning to turn on them. The very lack of loyalty and integrity they weaponized against others is now being redirected at them by their own allies. A beautiful, inevitable justice born from their own design. By building relationships on deception and short-term gain, they guaranteed those bonds would fracture under the weight of contradiction, the inevitable confession, and vindication. The foreshadowing threaded throughout this entire ordeal is now reaching a crescendo. Every contradiction, every small doubt, every fissure in their united front has been building toward one inevitable moment. Someone will break their silence. The person about to speak has been trapped by circumstances of their own making, and the only escape they see is through confession. This will not be a measured, strategic disclosure. It will be raw and desperate, a last-ditch bid for self-preservation that drags everyone else into the light. When a manipulator finally cracks, they rarely offer a tidy truth, they unload everything. Years of buried guilt, resentment toward co-conspirators, and fear of exposure will pour out, revealing connections, betrayals, and petty motives that were kept hidden. Their confession will map the true scope of the conspiracy, exposing how they manufactured evidence and manipulated entire communities into accepting their falsehoods. More damning still, it will expose the raw human motives beneath the scheme: petty jealousy, cold calculation, and a total absence of integrity. As these truths surface, the social landscape around you will shift dramatically. Those who once looked at you with suspicion will remember your worth. Those who believe the lies will rush to distance themselves from the liars. The narrative built to justify your supposed guilt will collapse and reorganize itself around your proven innocence. The beauty of truth is that once it begins to flow, no wall is high enough and no container is strong enough to stop it. It slips through the cracks of every carefully laid deception until the entire foundation of lies collapses. The first confession will not be a whisper. It will be the opening of a floodgate, unleashing a torrent of revelations that no one can contain. And once that first voice breaks the silence, others will follow, not out of virtue, but out of desperation. Each conspirator will rush to protect themselves by exposing their partners in deception, eager to minimize their own guilt by magnifying the guilt of others. The jealous accomplice, consumed by rage at having been used, will turn on the mastermind with a vengeance, leaking private conversations and revealing evidence of deliberate coordination. The silent enabler will crack under the suffocating weight of guilt, spilling everything they knew, and how their silence allowed lies to masquerade as truth. And even the mastermind, once so confident, will eventually find themselves isolated and exposed, backed into a corner, and attempting one last manipulation, shifting blame onto their former allies. But by then, no one will believe them. The same tactics they used to destroy you, lies, distortion, and character assassination, will be turned against them by their own allies. The machinery they built for your downfall will become the very mechanism of their destruction. And as these confessions pour out, your vindication won't be subtle, it will be overwhelming. Every lie spoken about you will be revealed as a projection of their own flaws. Every accusation they hurled will turn back and strike them as a deflection. The flaws they tried to pin on you will be shown to exist only in themselves. Their false narrative required them to erase your true character, dismiss your real contributions, and fabricate motives that never existed. But the truth has a way of surfacing. The sheer scale of their effort to destroy you proves your significance. For them to devote so much time, energy, and coordination into fabricating lies about you, to recruit others and invent stories, shows the power of your authentic self and the threat it posed to their false world. They feared you because authenticity cannot be manipulated, and your existence alone revealed the fragility of their entire illusion. This vindication, however, is more than just the clearing of your name. It is a living demonstration of the stark contrast between authentic power and manufactured influence. While they played political games and spent their lives weaving false narratives, you continued to simply exist as yourself. That authenticity, unshaken and unaltered, proved more powerful than every scheme combined. And now, as their empire of lies collapses, the world will see that what they tried to bury only grew stronger in the shadows. This ordeal did not break or weaken you. It has transformed you. Tested in the fire of injustice, you emerged not only intact, but forged into something greater than before. You now carry a priceless gift, the ability to see through facades instantly, to recognize manipulation before it takes root, and to distinguish between authentic relationships and those built on transaction. You know who stands with you when the narrative is uncertain, and who has the courage to speak the truth, even when lies are easier. The skills you have cultivated through this ordeal, keen observation, sharp pattern recognition, emotional resilience, and strategic thinking, are not merely survival tools. They are the hallmarks of transformation. You are no longer just someone who withstood the storm. You are someone who learned to read the winds, see the patterns in chaos, and turn what was meant for destruction into the foundation of unshakable strength. Every trial has prepared you, every betrayal has sharpened you, and every false accusation has only underscored the undeniable reality. You are chosen. What was meant to crush you has in fact refined you. You have been upgraded through adversity in ways most people can't imagine, with hardship becoming your teacher, betrayal your training ground, and injustice the fire that sharpened your discernment. You didn't simply survive this ordeal, you evolved into a version of yourself that is stronger, sharper, and more unshakable than ever before. You learned to trust your own judgment with absolute certainty, anchoring yourself in what you knew to be real when the social environment tried to gaslight you. As the dust begins to settle and the truth becomes undeniable, your entire social landscape will transform. The people who once took part in your character assassination will find themselves exposed and discredited. Those who remained neutral will be revealed as weak, their silence exposed as complicity, and those rare few who stood beside you in the dark will be revealed as people of true integrity, worthy of your lasting trust. This isn't just vindication, it is purification. Your social circle is being cleansed of opportunists, manipulators, and cowards, leaving behind a priceless network of authentic connections built on truth, respect, and loyalty. Every new relationship you form from this point forward will be stronger, more genuine, and more nourishing to your soul. The shift will be unmistakable. People will approach you differently, not just because the lies about you have been exposed, but because of how you carried yourself while under attack. They will admire the way you stood with integrity, how you never let go of your authenticity, and how you withstood a storm without breaking. Your reputation will not simply be restored, it will be enhanced, magnified by resilience. You will be known not just for your talents, but for your strength, endurance, and ability to embody truth in the face of lies. And the most powerful part of it all is that you never had to compromise yourself. You didn't sink to their level or adopt their tactics. You didn't lie, manipulate, or destroy others to win. You stayed true, and in the end, that very truth became your victory. The gifts you gained in this process are permanent, lifelong powers that will shape how you navigate every environment, from personal relationships to professional spaces, making you more effective, discerning, and magnetic to those who value integrity. You were tested in the fire of injustice, and instead of being consumed, you were tempered like steel. Every betrayal became a sharpening stone, and every false accusation became an opportunity to strengthen your grip on truth. The result is not just vindication, but elevation. You are not simply restored, you are reborn, carrying with you superpowers of spirit, mind, and heart that will guide you for the rest of your journey. You didn't need to lie, scheme, or manipulate. All you had to do was stand in your truth, and that truth became their undoing. The seeds of their collapse were embedded in the very methods they used to attack you. What destroyed them was not your hand, but the natural consequences of their choices. They achieved fleeting victories through lies, but deception always carries an expiration date. Their empire of manipulation had no roots, no anchor, and no resilience, while you built something that cannot be torn down because it was constructed on the unshakable foundation of authenticity. Integrity is eternal, and integrity always wins in the long arc of justice. The chosen do not win by becoming reflections of their enemies. They win by embodying such deep authenticity that their enemies cannot withstand their own reflection. Your light didn't just expose their darkness, it amplified their blindness. They were so intent on your downfall that they never noticed the cracks forming beneath their own feet. They mistook your stillness for weakness, your patience for naivety, your silence for surrender. But in truth, your restraint was the very force that magnified their collapse. Their storm grew louder, but the eye remained calm, and that eye was you. Their narrative has collapsed into evidence. Every accusation is a mirror, reflecting their own corruption. Their carefully constructed facade has been stripped bare, exposing desperation, greed, and weakness. And here you stand, chosen. You endured their most vicious attacks, yet preserved your sanity when they tried to bend your reality. You clung to your integrity when they insisted you were the problem, and you protected your authentic story when they tried to rewrite it for you. What was meant to annihilate you has only refined you, forging you into steel. Their confession is coming, their truth is unraveling. The weight of suppressed guilt is forcing them into disclosure, and with every revelation, your vindication expands. You didn't just survive their assault, you transmuted it into your triumph. This is the mark of being chosen, not that you escape trials, but that you turn them into transformation. Not that you avoid lies, but that you outshine them until they dissolve into truth. Not that you never encounter enemies, but that you defeat them, not by fighting in the mud, but by standing so firmly in who you are, that they destroy themselves in their attempts to reach you. The web of lies they spun around you has disintegrated, scattered like ash, carried by the wind. Your true story, the one you held with unwavering courage when no one stood beside you, now rises radiant, undeniable, and more powerful than ever before. This truth does more than clear your name, it crowns you in triumph. You haven't just been absolved of their accusations, you've been elevated beyond them, transformed through them, and defined not by their attempts to break you, but by your strength to rise above. You are vindicated, you are victorious, and above all, you are unshakably, undeniably chosen. If this message resonates with you, remember to like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell for more empowering content. Share your reflections in the comments. Let's continue walking this journey of truth and transformation together.